Hi and welcome to our Conceive Baby discussion today. Today I'll be talking about a topic and a nutrient that you may know very little about, but is actually very important during the preconception period and in fact entire way through pregnancy and breastfeeding. So firstly, for those of you who haven't joined us before, my name's Tasha Jennings, founder of Conceive Baby. I'm a naturopath, nutritionist, natural fertility specialist and author of the Vitamins Guide and the Fertility Diet, as well as an expert contributor to many major media publications. I'm also the director of Zycia. Now, Zycia means life and specialises in premium nutritional supplementation to promote and support life in its earliest stages. And as many of you who are part of the Conceive Baby community would know, I am passionate about helping women and couples fall pregnant and have happy, healthy babies. My aim for conceivebaby.com.au is to bring together a team of specialists across all aspects of fertility and preconception health so that you can achieve your baby dreams. And one of those fabulous experts is Professor Marie Caudill. Now, I've personally been following Marie's research and been in touch with her over email for many years now, so it's a true pleasure to be speaking with her today. And I'm speaking about a topic that I'm very passionate about, and I know she is too, and that's choline in the preconception period. Now, Professor Caudill received her PhD degree in Nutritional Sciences from the University of Florida in 1997. Shortly thereafter, she became an assistant professor in the Department of Human Nutrition and Food Sciences at Cal Poly Pomona University in Southern California, where she served for 10 years. Professor Caudill joined the Division of Nutritional Sciences at Cornell University in August in 2007 as an associate professor of human and molecular nutrition and was promoted to a full professor in 2012. Professor Caudill is internationally recognised for her work on folate and choline and the intake of these levels to nutrients to promote human health. She has published over 100 papers, reviews and chapters in this area and is frequently an invited speaker on these topics. And I'm thrilled to have her speaking with us today. Welcome, Marie.
Thank you very much, Tasha. It's truly a pleasure to be here. And you're quite right in noting that choline is an unknown essential micronutrient. And there's many physicians, healthcare professionals, and some nutrition professionals that really don't know too much about choline and its importance during the pre and periconceptional period. So
absolutely. I'm rapt to be speaking with you today and bringing this knowledge to people. So I guess we'll start out with that. What is choline?
Yes, so choline is a micronutrient. It's found in the foods that we eat, so it's naturally occurring substance. And there are some foods that are richer sources than others. So in general, animal source foods are going to provide more choline than plant source foods. So egg yolks, fish, and animal flesh, meats, poultry, pork are all good sources of this micronutrient. Yeah. And this micronutrient is a little unusual because our bodies can make it. So like vitamin D, our bodies do produce a small amount of this nutrient, but it is not enough to meet requirements for most people. And I'll have to emphasize that this is particularly true during pregnancy.
Yeah, so obviously it's so important during that preconception period. So
yes.
What role does it play in the body? Obviously important for general health as well, but particularly preconception and during that pregnancy period, what role does it play?
Sure. So choline has three major roles in the body that are very important during pregnancy. The first is that it's needed to make a phospholipid called phosphatidylcholine. And this is a molecule that's found in every cell membrane. So when you think about pregnancy and you think about that cell division that is accelerating throughout this period, your body is going to need more choline in order to support the cell division that is occurring both in the mother and in the fetus. Choline is also needed to make another phospholipid called sphingomyelin. And sphingomyelin is abundant in our brains. And as the fetal brain is developing, more sphingomyelin is going to be needed. And one of the major roles of sphingomyelin in the brain is to basically provide a wrapping around the neurons, the arms or the branches of the neurons. And this wrapping allows electrical impulses to go down our axons efficiently so that other areas of the brain can be woken up and other parts of our body can be communicated with. And along the same lines, choline is needed to make acetylcholine, which is an important neurotransmitter that is needed for the development of a specific portion of the fetal brain, and that is the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is also known as the learning, attention, and mood part of the brain. And so I know later on we'll probably talk about choline and cognition. And so those just those roles that choline plays in making sphingomyelin and in making acetylcholine make it very important for brain development. And then another major role of choline in the body is to make what is referred to as a universal methyl donor, and it's referred to as S-adenosylmethionine. You may know it as SAMe. SAMe is sold as a nutritional supplement and is often to support brain health. Well, SAMe is also provides methyl groups that are placed on our DNA. And these methyl groups will determine which genes are turned on and which genes are turned off. So choline, because it provides these methyl groups, plays an important role in determining which parts of the genome is turned on and off, and thus what proteins, hormones, and metabolites our cells are making or producing.
Wow. So obviously the lack of choline during the preconception period and pregnancy versus having plenty of choline available during that period. I mean, obviously your research has focused on the benefits of having more choline. What are the ramifications of not having enough versus having a plentiful supply during that critical period?
Right. Well, you know, we don't know much in terms of what are the downsides of choline deficiency during pregnancy because it hasn't really been studied. But we do know that choline deficiency in adults, healthy adults, who were given a choline deficient diet, they develop fatty liver. So one of the main, what I had mentioned that choline was needed to make phosphatidylcholine, and phosphatidylcholine is needed to make very low density lipoproteins. And these low density lipoproteins are a way that the liver gets fat out of the liver and into the blood supply. And actually, this is very important during pregnancy because we want to ensure that we have enough fat, triglycerides, and other forms of fat getting to the placenta so that they can be taken up by the fetus.
Yeah. So it has benefits, obviously, for the fetal brain development and for the mother in getting through the baby.
Yes, and my understanding is that fatty liver is not uncommon during pregnancy. And so I wonder if giving mom more choline may help prevent some of the fatty liver that's occurring during pregnancy, because there is a ramp up of triglyceride and other fat synthesis that then need choline to get out of the liver and available to other tissues.
Yeah.
And so if you have choline deficiency during pregnancy, if you were in animal models, it's going to impair brain development and cell division. And so you're going to have all kinds of dysfunction because of the lack of choline and the impaired cell division, as well as impaired methylation reactions. And so we don't know much about it because in humans, it's not a question that's been asked, partly because it wasn't until 1998 that we recognized that choline was essential in our diets. Prior to that, it was believed that people can make enough choline to support their needs. And it is notable that during pregnancy, our ability to make choline as a pregnant woman does go up. But we've used tracer studies to show that, that it is not enough to prevent the depletion of other choline metabolites during pregnancy. And so even when we give 2 times what's currently recommended, we normalize choline metabolism to that of a non-pregnant woman, but we still find depletion of certain choline metabolites. And I'd just like to contrast this for your audience to folate. So we've done studies with both choline and folate. And what we find with folate is that when pregnant women are taking a folic acid containing prenatal vitamin, their folate status isn't any different from that of a non-pregnant woman who's taking the same amount of folate. And they're excreting rather large amounts of folic acid, unmetabolized folic acid, in their urine. And so what this says to us is that women who are taking a prenatal supplement with folic acid are consuming enough to meet the cellular needs of their body during this period of time. Now, if we contrast that to choline, we found that when we give women twice what's currently recommended, that we didn't see any bump up in the amount of choline that they were excreting in their urine, nor did we see a normalization of the choline metabolites as compared to a non-pregnant woman. So there's clearly a very high demand for this micronutrient during pregnancy.
So is it just because we haven't studied it enough, and I guess it hasn't been recognized as long as folate? Obviously, there's a massive folate message out there, and women know about folate, but we haven't really heard of choline. Is that just because it's relatively new?
That's exactly right. And so, it wasn't recognized until 1998 that we required a dietary source of it. But since that period of time, there has been a lot of studies coming out, one of which is showing that, like folic acid, choline appears to be very important for closure of the neural tube. And what that means is that choline may also be protective against neural tube defects. And it is interesting that women who have genetic defects in the choline pathway, are at greater risk of developing neural tube defects. Well, they're having babies that have neural tube defects. And so there's this growing link between maternal choline nutrition and development of a neural tube defect. And so that's come out of both epidemiological studies as well as some animal work. And we also, in my lab, we've shown that choline is important for the development of the placenta, and that a higher choline intake can optimize some of the markers of a healthy placenta. One of those markers that is suggestive or that indicates that the placenta is not doing very well is something called sFlt1. And in women who have preeclampsia, sFlt1 is very high in their bloodstream. Preeclampsia is a disorder of pregnancy that's caused by a dysfunctional placenta. And we've shown that even in healthy women, when we give them additional choline, we can suppress or decrease the amount of sFlt1 that the placenta is producing and the amount of sFlt1 that gets into maternal blood. And so studies are now needed to see if maybe giving extra choline might be a way to prevent disorders of pregnancy like preeclampsia. And so that's a line of research that my group is pursuing. Another very interesting finding in regards to choline and giving more choline during human pregnancy is that we found that our choline babies, those are babies that were born to moms who consumed more choline, they had lower levels of a stress hormone in their blood. And that stress hormone is cortisol. And it turns out that choline was decreasing the genes, expression of genes in the mom's placenta that boost cortisol production in the baby. And so that was through that DNA methylation. These cortisol stimulating genes in mom's placenta, they were more methylated, and that methylation decreased their expression so that less of these cortisol stimulating proteins were made, less got into the baby's blood, and they showed a reduced level of cortisol. Now, what might some of the lifelong implications of that be? Well, we do know that excess cortisol plays a negative role in the offspring's attention, and this is both in humans and in animals, and that cortisol is associated with several stress-related diseases, such as high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. And so it would be very interesting to know and to follow these kids to see if that lower response to stress is maintained, as they age, and what might be some of the possible benefits of that blunted stress response.
Yes, it'd be interesting to see in future. I guess at least we know we're giving them the best start. I mean, as I think anyone who gets my newsletter knows, my motto is being the best mum starts well before birth. And it really starts, well before you even conceive. You're creating all the healthy eggs, the healthy sperm to create that healthy baby. And I think you're right, during that gestation period to provide more choline. I saw one study summed up in that saying, we don't know enough about the role of choline on human health, intellectual and memory development, but we do know enough to start preaching the choline message. Is that, something you would agree with?
I would definitely agree with that. So when we look at the animal work clearly shows that giving mom, and in this case it would be the pregnant mouse or rodent, more choline during pregnancy has lasting beneficial effects on the adult offspring's brain functioning. And in fact, it prevents the decline in cognitive functioning that normally occurs during aging. And this is just giving mom more of a single nutrient, choline. And I'll also note that the comparison group in this case is moms who were consuming the recommended intake of choline for animals. So it's not like we're comparing to moms that were getting deficient choline. We're comparing to moms that consume normal choline, their offspring, versus moms who got extra choline and how their offspring are doing on cognitive tests. And so this has been shown across several research groups and studies. And animal work also shows that choline, giving mom more choline during pregnancy, may be protective against neural insults, such as consuming excess alcohol and other. And so there's definitely something very special about this micronutrient in terms of brain development. I have a colleague that's working in a mouse model of Down syndrome. And when she gives those moms extra choline, her offspring perform as well as the normal non-Down syndrome offspring on several of the tests. And so this is, in terms of the animal work, a very clear message that more choline has benefits on cognition. Now, in humans, it's much more difficult to show. because in order to do a choline intervention study where we demonstrate long-lasting benefits, we would have to follow these individuals for 50, 60 years after the mothers have consumed extra maternal choline. So it's a very difficult study to do in humans. But I will say that I've collaborated with Rick Canfield and Barb Strupp here at my university, and we're showing that giving mom more choline can improve the infant's processing speed for information. And basically, this is a test done where the infant whose mom got more choline sits on the mother's lap, and there are pictures that come in from the periphery. And basically what the investigators are doing is they're tracking how fast that baby can see that visual coming into their periphery. And the faster they track it, that's an indicator of faster processing speed. And so we have that paper that's being reviewed right now, and we hope to get it out very soon. And there's been another group too that has shown with an intervention study some benefits of giving mom more choline on infant cognitive processing. So although we don't have a lot of data, we're starting to see in humans that some of these benefits hold from what we've seen in the animal studies.
And the data is obviously limited, but extremely promising. And it's so promising that I have noted that the recent conference of the American Medical Association, they actually voted in support of having choline in all prenatal supplements. As you said, a lot of people aren't getting enough because it was presumed our body was making enough. Is that correct? We actually do require dietary sources, and possibly, and most likely by the sound of it, more than what is recommended currently.
Yes, and I'm really encouraged to see that physicians and the American Medical Association and other scientific bodies are starting to appreciate the benefits and importance of choline during the perinatal period. And so at present, there's a very few number of prenatal vitamins that have choline. And so I'm hoping that we will start seeing more and more supplements that are enriched with this micronutrient. And I'll just make one more note about the importance of choline during pregnancy. And that is that many women know about the importance of DHA, which is an omega-3 fatty acid that is known to be important in eye development as well as cognition. And it turns out that there's this overlap between choline and DHA metabolism, in that when we give non-pregnant women, so women that might be wanting to become pregnant, extra choline, we see an increase in the amount of DHA that is getting out of their liver and into their bloodstream, into their red blood cells. And if they were starting to, trying to get pregnant, it would be going into other places in their body as well. For sure, once the placenta started developing, that extra choline would increase the amount of DHA that would be available to the developing placenta. So it's important to understand too that there's this overlap between micronutrients, and this is an example of how giving more giving more choline can increase supply of DHA. And so that's just another thing for your audience to keep in mind.
Yeah, so it not only works in isolation, obviously choline is very important on its own, but it also works obviously alongside these other really important nutrients, DHA being very important for brain development and placental development. Right. And obviously, as you're saying, it's not just something that you have when you fall pregnant. It's about, getting your levels higher and getting adequate supply for when you do fall pregnant, and all the way through breastfeeding as well. I know all the way through it's been shown to be very important for that rapid development during pregnancy.
Yes, and in the United States, there is a recommendation for DHA. That pregnant women or women planning to become pregnant should take 200 milligrams of DHA. And so I hope to see the same kind of recommendation come through for choline. And we do need to keep in mind that many pregnancies are unplanned. And so that's actually the reason that folic acid fortification was mandated, so that women who were unaware of their pregnancy were able to consume adequate amounts of folic acid during this very critical window. But there are other nutrients that are just as critical, that we need to be thinking of in terms of enhancing our chances of becoming pregnant and making sure that that's a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated by your research, and I think your research is amazing, and I'm really thrilled to be able to help promote your important message as well about choline, because I agree that folate has become, a lot of awareness around folate, even vitamin D. I don't know what it's like in America, but here in Australia, there's a lot of awareness about vitamin D and the DHA to a certain extent as well. But choline is similar experience to yourself. I speak with a lot of specialists even who are very unaware of what choline is. So I think you've very much shown today how important it is during the whole way through pregnancy, because 90 days before you actually conceive, you're already carrying that DNA that's creating that egg that's going to pop out at ovulation. So you're already nourishing that future child preconception. So getting that choline levels right prior to getting the healthy environment. Another thing I always say is we often spend weeks, months preparing the baby's nursery for the new arrival when we get pregnant. But the most important nursery your baby will ever have is the one inside you, and preparing that right, getting that healthy placenta, getting those nutrients, across to growing baby is the most important thing you can do for your child's health, and possibly, as you're saying, and we're seeing in animal studies, not only the short-term health of your baby and the health of the pregnancy, but giving your child the best starting life for potentially lifelong effects.
That's right. So yeah, and I also want to emphasize that many women can change their diets when they're trying to get pregnant, or they are pregnant, and so they go to more of a plant-based diet, and they believe that it's healthier for them and their babies. But they do need to keep in mind that during this critical period, that there is a need for some animal source foods because of these important micronutrients that are so plentiful. And choline is an example, but also vitamin B12 would be another one, that is just not plentiful in a plant-based diet. So getting some of those animal source foods in and taking a prenatal vitamin that provides these essential nutrients is really critical to ensure a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah, excellent. I don't know, there's a lot of eggs are a good source. I know your meat sources. Is there anything in particular you would recommend people include more in their diet to make sure they are getting sufficient choline?
Yeah, if a plant-based diet, or if they're vegetarian, cruciferous vegetables are a very good source. So broccoli, for example, and cauliflower are good sources. Also, legumes and beans are good sources. But the amount that you would have to consume to equal that of an egg yolk, would be 1.5 cups or so versus 1 egg yolk. So you'd need a higher quantity. But there are some plant source foods that would provide sufficient choline if that were the way that a woman was choosing to go.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure we put some more information up on the website about all the dietary sources, as well as how much you should be getting and what to include in your diet, because I think we've made it quite clear today that it is so important. And it's great to see the American Medical Association and bodies like that taking the initiative. It hasn't yet reached here in Australia, and hopefully it will, and hopefully we can start spreading the message anyway. Is there anything else you would like to add before we finish up, Marie?
One last thing, and that is that most women are not consuming the recommended intake level, at least in the United States. So the recommended intake level is referred to as the adequate intake level, and that is 450 milligrams of choline per day during pregnancy. Most women are getting about 300. That doesn't mean they're deficient, but we've shown that consuming 2 times what's currently recommended has benefits in terms of the placental function and in terms of baby's development. And so I think, you know, for all women to strive to consume that 450 milligrams per day would be a good start.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It probably sums it up quite well there, and that is the adequate intake. And I think in pregnancy, we want more than just adequate for our baby. As you said, we want plenty of nourishment. We want to create the healthiest eggs, the healthiest sperm, the healthiest baby, the healthiest environment in our body possible. So getting the adequate amount may be adequate, but as you're now seeing, we really possibly a more abundant supply than what is adequate would be beneficial. And he said most women aren't even getting adequate. So yeah, really important to start focusing on these really important sources and supplement as well that contains choline, because I said a lot of prenatal supplements don't provide choline. So do make sure that you look at what your supplement is providing. They said the American Medical Association have now voted in support of it in all prenatal supplements. So hopefully we will see it rolling out across more supplements. But at the moment, make sure that yours does, just so we can make sure you're getting adequate supply.
Right.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Marie. I know you have a very busy schedule, and I do find your research absolutely amazing. So congratulations on all you have achieved so far, and do keep us up to date of your new research, and I'll make sure we put that on the Conceive Baby site for everyone as well.
It was my pleasure, Tasha, and I've really enjoyed our communication over the years, and I thank you for your support and interest.
Thank you again. You've been lovely to deal with, and it's so great to actually speak to you. I know it's been email communications I was actually trying to think back to probably prime having my kids, who are now 5 and 2 now.
Yes.
So it has been a little while. When I was personally struggling to conceive and fall pregnant, I first reached out to Marie with my background in health and nutrition and started looking into that area. So it's great to speak with you after all these years, and congratulations on your research.
Thank you, Tasha. Pleasure.
Thank you. Now, to anyone else in the Conceive Baby community, if you haven't already registered for the Conceive Baby Webinar Series, do jump on the conceivebaby.com.au and register for the series. We've got some amazing guests coming up. And also look out for the podcast. It's on the homepage there. If you prefer to listen, we have some great experts on the Conceive Baby podcast as well as a free download to finding your fertile window. So thanks for listening in today, and we'll speak to you again soon.